Addiction has many faces and doesn't discriminate between the young, old, black, white, executive, homemaker, student, or plant worker. Don't suffer in silence. Find help, hope, and healing at Free Indeed Treatment Center. Free Indeed is a licensed, faith-based treatment facility that will help you get free and stay free. There are licensed professional counselors to help individuals and their families who struggle with addictions and destructive behaviors. Call 924-1910 or visit setfreeindeedministry.com.
Hello and welcome to Choices, the show where we empower you to make better choices so you can live a better life. Happy New Year, everybody. I don't know about you, but I am so excited about '09. I must tell you, '08 was a challenge. I'm so glad it's behind us. A lot of great things happened in '08 in my life, some challenges as well, but I'm excited. I'm pumped about the new year and just about all the things that are in store, not only for myself, but for you as well. We're living in some challenging times right now with the economy the way it is, and just a whole lot of other stuff. And a lot of people make a lot of New Year's resolutions, and I'm sure you guys have made some good ones. But we had a show last week about anxiety and depression, and we had so many great comments from you guys talking about how it empowered you and it enlightened you. But guess what? I have even more information. I am so glad, and I guess you say, Tanja, everybody's your friend. Well, everybody is, but this is truly one of my friends. This is Rhonda. Rhonda's here with us, and Rhonda is a great lady who specializes in a lot of good stuff. Rhonda, thank you for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Rhonda, we talk all the time about, not only women issues, but, people who suffer from post-traumatic stress and a lot of other challenges in their lives. First of all, tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do, and tell us about your family of, 20 girls?
Not quite. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I have a master's in counseling, and I'm also a family nurse practitioner. So the medical aspects of oftentimes what's going on with patients is very important to me, as well as the psychiatric aspects.
Right.
And so I like to sort of look at my practice as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, somewhat holistically, but definitely, my bulk of my patients and what I work with is people that are having psychiatric symptoms. And so what we'll work on is helping them with their symptoms,
right,
and trying to strike a balance in life and getting back to what should be normal for them.
Right, and Rhonda, again, like I said, we have a conversation about this a lot because, some of your clients who you are treating and they're doing so well. Tell us what happens when someone walks into your office and they say, you know what, I'm anxious, I'm not sleeping, I'm depressed, I have an eating disorder, it's just not about what's happening in, the world today, but I've been having these issues for a long time. Because again, one of the things we talked about last week was the stigma of mental health. Tell me this, why do you think, people go to the doctor when they have a toothache or when they have a knee injury, but when it comes to stuff that's going on within our psyche and our mind, it's like a taboo thing.
Right. And it's a shame, really, because a lot of what we understand now about the brain chemistry and the imbalances that people experience are a whole lot like diabetes, or a whole lot like, working with cancer symptoms. And the sad fact is, if we don't make these symptoms better, we now know that stress of the imbalance is going to end up causing physical chronic illness, very likely, if we don't make those symptoms better as they sort of appear and before they get really heavily grounded. But as a patient comes in, it's real important to me to know their history.
Right. Why do you need to know a person's history? And I mean, I know that might sound goofy, but because I know we go to the doctor and we have to fill out 30 pieces of paper. Why is that so important?
Because family history is so important. We understand so much more now about genetics and DNA and the predispositions that put us so much more at risk. And so I typically like to know the history from their grandparents forward, and definitely sort of a timeline of the patient's life, best they can remember from preschool to school age to present day. I'll tell them, let's go through a timeline of your life and tell me where you had difficult times, or where you sort of felt like you kind of fell down in grief or depression or anxiety and had a very difficult time functioning. And so we'll sort of scan back across that and look for the difficult times, look for what that stressor was and how difficult it was to get better, how long it took, and what it took. That, as well as on a full medical history, because we know that thyroid problems and
Wow.
there's all kinds of imbalances in the body that could be organic, that could be causing the problem. Absolutely, with women.
What do you mean by organic?
Things that are the chemical imbalances. An imbalance of your thyroid hormone, an imbalance of your female hormones with men, an imbalance of their testosterone being high or low. There's a lot of behaviors that can be affected because of those imbalances.
Well, let me ask you this. You talk about men, because I know women, we're quick, honey, either to call a girlfriend or call someone and say, hey, I'm having these challenges. But, it's known that most men don't reach out for help when they are depressed or when they have an anxiety. Are you seeing, an increase in, your clients that you treat?
I do think that probably in the last 5 to 10 years that it's gotten to a place where people will come to get help instead of just sort of implode. And the amazing thing to me is, because I work sometimes in a medical clinic, we have a lot of very young men coming in with imbalances of testosterone, which can make them terribly depressed.
Wow.
And they have no idea.
Wow.
And then sometimes if there is someone who has abused steroids in the past,
Wow.
They're very much at risk for low testosterone and all of the sequelae and the symptoms that come because of that.
Right.
So definitely there are certain things that, will start a problem, and then there's all these spin-off problems.
Right, exactly. We want to talk about some of those things. We're going to take a quick break. There's a lot of information we want to cover today, and I know Rhonda and I know the great work that she's doing, so I can't wait to share that information with you. Hey, please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Addiction has many faces and doesn't discriminate between the young, old, black, white, executive, homemaker, student, or plant worker. Don't suffer in silence. Find help, hope, and healing at Free Indeed Treatment Center. Free Indeed is a licensed, faith-based treatment facility that will help you get free and stay free. There are licensed professional counselors to help individuals and their families who struggle with addictions and destructive behaviors. Call 924-1910 or visit setfreeindeedministry.com.
Welcome back. I am so glad you're here. Again, we've covered a lot of great information so far, and I'm here with Rhonda, and she's going to just, again, tell you about, what she does, because, again, guys, you don't have to suffer in silence, and I say that all the time. There's hope, help, and healing, and there's so many good people in our community, and we want to showcase those people. And, Rhonda, I know the work that she does. I know the passion that she has for our clients. Rhonda, you talked about, men and, the challenges they're facing, because there are a lot of men and women also who are, going through this whole, recession crisis. And when a man would walk into your into your office, I know you said you'll do the history, but what are some of the other things that you look for? Tell me about that.
One of the things that I think is so interesting with this change in the economy is that there are men who typically have functioned fine, even though maybe they've had a low serotonin level. Part of their presentation of low serotonin has been their obsession with their work.
Serotonin. Can you explain to us what is serotonin?
Serotonin is sort of a calming neurotransmitter to the central nervous system. It is, for instance, it is what rises typically if you smoke marijuana. Serotonin rises and gives you sort of that ability to relax.
So what if you don't smoke? How does it work then? Is it because if we're watching TV or if they're watching sports, or what's up with that?
If you're somewhat calm and somewhat resilient with stress and able to cope and function well, sort of under fire, and have that kind of cool demeanor, odds are, unless you're internalizing it, you're kind of laid back and you probably have a fair amount of serotonin. For people who are really sort of hyper, run around sort of like an engine all the time and have a lot of excess energy, and then at the same time have a very difficult time unwinding at night and falling to sleep, or just the ability to relax and have peace and calm in themselves as they are relaxing, oftentimes they have sort of an upregulated adrenaline from stress or from genetics, or it could be other chemicals that are causing the problem.
And so what are some of the things that you're treating your clients with to help them, through those challenging times of depression, anxiety, stress, not sleeping?
Right. Typically, one of the things, like I said, that's sort of surprising is we're seeing men come in now that typically would not come in because they typically feel sort of that they have the world by the tail. And if they are bankers or if they're, investment people, they're really suffering and they're stressing more so maybe than they ever have before because they've so identified with their job and the security that it's brought them, and all of a sudden that security has been so shaken.
Right, and even just, dads and, who just can't make
concerns.
Yeah, concern for their kids and just can't make ends meet. How do you different what's circumstantial and then what's really clinical depression?
Looking at when the onset happened.
For example?
If, for instance, this fella has functioned fine most all his life and really can't tell me that there's ever been a difficult time in his life, then there was the onset of this change with the economy, and then the symptoms appeared. Very likely, the stress has upregulated the adrenaline. He's not sleeping at night. He's not able to calm himself and relax himself. So with that, typically what I would do is come in with a medicine that's going to raise serotonin a little bit and help get that balance and calm them.
Now, one of the things that we were talking about last night, you were saying how I thought was really great, and we always here at Free Indeed Treatment Center, Set Free Indeed Ministry, we're about the holistic part of a person: spirit, mind, soul, and body. You mentioned something about that last night. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because it made sense, and I can quote her, but she says it better.
I think that it's real important spiritually. To me, the spiritual aspect is the most important thing. It's sort of the foundation that everything else is built from. So spiritually, if you have some peace about you and your spirit, and you know that, you can self-soothe because you have faith and hope and belief, that can carry you very far, as opposed to someone who really doesn't have the spiritual nurturing that, the counterpart would have.
Right.
So if you have that spiritual support and you're being nurtured and you're feeding sort of the spiritual part of your body, even though there are medical symptoms, those patients tend to do better because they have hope. If there's a lack of spiritual nurturing, if there's something that maybe has happened in their past that was a negative experience with religion or spirituality, and they've sort of put that on the shelf and never worked with it, it's much more difficult, for them to get their symptoms better, because medically we can get the symptoms better. And hopefully, as we do, they're going to have healing spiritually as well.
And I'm so glad you say that, and I'm really trying to, fight back the tears, because I know that there are a lot of people suffering in silence, and, and I am a woman of faith, and, I must say that, a lot of times when, a doctor tell us, especially me, Tanja, there might be something that you need to take to help you sleep. And I read and I do all those things, and I have felt guilty because I feel like that, my lack of faith, because I feel I have to take something. But I know about scriptures that talk about healing, but I also know that there's a practical part as well. What would you tell someone who was out there, like I was, and who's saying, you know what, I have faith, and I love my family, I have a good support structure, and is it saying does that mean you're defeated? Does that mean your faith is not where it needs to be?
No, not at all. Not at all. And what I typically do, the first thing I do with a new patient is I sit down with them at a desk and we actually look at the chemical imbalance, the problem that they're having with their nervous system, because it's a problem in the nervous system. So, I oftentimes compare that to an imbalance with their sugar and their insulin, because diabetes is so similar, an imbalance. And, with diabetes, when you have that imbalance, we know that we can damage our eyes, our kidneys, our fingers, our toes, and eventually our whole cardiovascular health. So if we let that runaway train keep going, we can't always repair all that.
Wow. And you know what, there's been more and more done, and one of my good friends is a neurosurgeon in the community, and we talk a lot about the brain and stuff like that. We've talked a lot about some of the challenges. We've talked about some of the things that are happening. Tell us about some of the solutions, some of the things that you know that are working, and to let people know that there is hope, help, and healing out there. Let's talk about some of the solutions. We talked about symptoms, and I know we couldn't cover in this whole show, but tell us about that. I mean, what are some of the things that you know that are helping people? I was talking to someone the other day, and just so happened she was telling me, oh, I feel good, and I'm like, do you know Rhonda? She's like, oh yeah, and she said, I feel great. What are some of the things that you're doing to treat your clients to make them feel normal?
The first, to me, the most important thing is education. Educating them about what it is that's out of balance, why they're feeling the way they are,
right?
Genetics. Definitely that the spiritual aspect needs to be nurtured and fed,
right?
As well as the medical aspect.
Holistic.
The whole body, because if we're just feeding the spirit and the medical stuff is getting more and more complicated and we're getting worse and worse with our symptoms, we're still suffering.
Right.
And truthfully now with brain chemistry, we can tell that if we don't repair the imbalances, there can be brain damage over time just because the symptoms are never corrected.
Right.
We start losing circulation and metabolism in certain parts of the brain, and it literally begins to shrivel just from depression.
Yeah, and another thing right quick, we're seeing a lot of depression now in adolescents. Oh my God, what's going on with that? What is going on? I mean, well, being depressed at 13 and 10, Rhonda, people are really being depressed at that age. Why?
Much younger, too.
Really?
Much younger. I mean,
Really?
small children. One of the places that I work, we actually do child psychiatry, and there again, it could be genetics. It can definitely be the tension and the stress in the house. A lot of times, the patients that I see were possibly raised by someone with a substance abuse issue or someone with a mood disorder who was explosive. And these patients have sort of felt like they walked on eggshells their whole life. Well, that upregulates your adrenaline for a lifetime.
Really?
And causes an imbalance, low serotonin, and sets them up for depression, anxiety, and a whole lot of stress problems that can cause medical problems.
Well, let me ask you right quick. We got some time left. Why is it, a lot of people are suffering with, sleep disorder, and I know there's a lot of good, good therapy centers that people can go and you can get a, a sleep test done and stuff like that.
Studies.
Yeah, but what happens when our brain can just not shut down at night?
It's overloaded, literally overloaded, brain strain. I mean, when you look at insomnia, sleep is actually, for psychiatry, it's actually a vital sign.
Meaning?
Meaning it is that important as your pulse and your blood pressure and respiration.
Wow, come on.
So if sleep is not normal per se, and typically that's a good 7 hours at least, ideally, 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Are you getting 7?
Without lying down for an hour while you're having these racing, worrying thoughts about tomorrow, losing an hour there, and then having broken sleep every 2 hours because you're tossing and turning, it's not rejuvenating. It's not helping your body to sort of keep the fountain of youth updating and sort of regenerating the brain chemistry there.
Right.
We're not able to release the melatonin and correct our cortisol imbalances, and therefore it's self-perpetuating.
Right.
If sleep is not right, we're probably not going to get better.
Wow. Well, Rhonda, if there's some people out there right now, adolescent men, women, who are suffering with sleep disorder, having stress, anxiety, any kind of challenges right there, is there something we know that they need to, like I said, this is a holistic approach, and you need to do a checklist in all those areas of your life. But is there something that right now, that you can tell them that they need to begin to do or think about doing, or what would you tell them they need to, what's their first step?
I think that anytime you see about a 2-week period where there's problems with stress, problems
2 weeks?
with sleep, which a lot of times by the time they get to me, it's been 2 years. But stress, muscle tension in the neck and shoulders, headaches, vague pains in the body, not functioning well, not enjoying things the way that they used to, just feeling overwhelmed, feeling uptight, just being so stressed that it's hard to think straight. You know, with kids, a lot of times you're going to see their grades go down, you're going to see problems with sleep, and they're just not themselves.
Right.
You know, and medically, I think it needs to be evaluated, but also psychologically. We correct some of the chemistry that it's imbalanced, and then we get the encouragement and the counseling that we need and the support. That's so healing.
Right, it really is. And I'm also thinking about the scripture says, a merry heart does good like a medicine. And why it's important to laugh and take breaks and learn how to relax. Because I think that's most of our problem, is that we don't know how to relax. What are some of the things that you can tell a person that they can do at home, at work, just to kind of, you know, relax and, you know, and just, you know, something like that, something practical.
Slow down. Just slow down.
Okay, we living in America. What?
Slow down and talk with somebody about the things that stress you. Try to find a quiet place away from the TV, away from the computer, away from the phone, the cell phone, and the things
the BlackBerry?
that are overstimulating. Right.
Overstimulating meaning, does a BlackBerry?
Meaning I'm between the computer, the TV, the phone, and if I didn't have ADD before, I look like I do now because I got irons in every fire. It's just there's too much information coming in at one time. When you look at the central nervous system, it's overstimulated. So how do we sort of simplify, put down some of those extra balls we've been juggling and just relax?
What about some adolescents who are out there watching? And what are some of the signs? Maybe, let me ask you this quickly. How does a parent know if their kid is depressed, stressed? All the homework they have, oh my God.
Changes in their ability to cope with that, frustration with their ability to cope with that, acting out behaviors, irritability. A lot of times with an adolescent, depression appears as irritability and just being overwhelmed and agitated and sort of taking that out on other people.
Right. Let me ask you this. Someone told me, and I don't know, they said studies have shown that men who really have issues with depression, they show a lot of anger. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing how if we looked at anxiety or stress on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10's a lot, 1's a little, patients always tell me if they're about a 7 most of the time on the upper end of stress, the next thing I do is go to an irritability scale of 1 to 10, and if 10's a lot, where's your irritability? It almost always correlates with stress. So when we decrease the stress and calm things down and relax the body, the irritability just comes down quite beautifully with it.
And you know, one of the things that, you know, I'm gonna, you know, and I know y'all gonna find it hard to believe. I have told Rhonda 5 times, I'm coming to get a checkup. I'm coming to make sure that my mental health is good. What, 10 times?
At least.
I'm making a vow to you today that I am going to do it.
We're going to pencil you in.
No, you put a pen, honey. I'm writing it in blood because, you know, it's important, just like our natural body. And so many people said, you know, my New Year's resolution is to lose weight. You know, it's about the body. But then when it comes to the mind, don't want to do that. I know I'm going to make a commitment, you know, to you, not only as a friend and a colleague, but to do that. The other thing is that I want to, you know, let you guys know you might have some questions out there, and I want you to go to our website or, you know, email us and say, look, here are some questions that I have. Go to www.freendtreatmentcenter.com. Go to the information, contact information, and send us an email. And I'm going to have, you know, Rhonda back on, and, you know, we want to, you know, answer some of the questions that you have. Now, you know, this is just one thing you need to do. There are some great doctors, some great therapists like Rhonda that you need to be going to. I know we have a few more minutes left. If there's anything that somebody out there who's suffering in silence, you know, won't you offer them some hope, help, and healing, and, you know, some more education? Because I know we've told you guys a lot, but encourage them.
I think that, you know, a lot of times we'll feel, especially as a mom or as a woman, we'll feel like, you know, I have to take care of everybody else. And dads are that way too, you know, I have to take care of everybody else. But when you look at the symptoms and the problems that they're causing in your life, the problem is if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. If mom's not doing well, it affects the whole house, okay? If dad's not doing well, it's like, okay, dad's home from work, everybody tighten up. You know, you can just see the stress rising because dad's coming in and he's uptight. So it's affecting everybody. It's not just affecting you. Typically, the whole family is affected.
Right. And so the first thing that, she said is to, get hope. Go talk to your clergy, your pastor. Talk to a good friend that you trust. And like Rhonda said, if you say you're going into 2 weeks, pick up the phone. If you made a resolution to, lose weight, make a resolution to get a checkup. I mean, we do maintenance on our cars, but when it comes to our bodies and our minds in particular, it's a totally different ballgame. Rhonda, I'm just excited. I'm excited about the new year. Again, I'm just, grateful to know you and working with you. And again, we don't want you guys to suffer in silence, and we want to reduce the stigma, of mental health issues among women, adolescents, and among men. And that's what this show is all about, And sometimes, isn't it true, when you kind of fog or depressed, it's hard to make choices. I mean, we talk about the show about choices,
right?
But doesn't that affect your ability to make clear choices? What do you tell a person if they're really depressed?
Don't make any big decisions until we get you feeling better, and your decisions should come after your symptoms are in remission, because it can cause you to make bad decisions.
Really? Wow, I tell you, and that's what this show is all about. We want to empower you to make better choices so you can live a better life. Rhonda, I'm so glad to, see you again. We, definitely want to have you back on the show. And again, these kind of segments we want to do once a month, because the people out there need this.
Absolutely.
And
awareness.
They need awareness and education. They need to know symptoms and solutions, and this is all about solutions. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm excited about the new year. And I'm just grateful to live in a city where we have, people like yourself who really care about people. This is a holistic approach, and we want to make sure that you have everything that you need to make better choices so you can live a better life. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you. It's always an honor. You call me and tell me you watched the show, and thank you. And I just want to make sure that we're always giving you good information, good educations, good solutions so you can live a better life. Have a great one. God bless you, and we'll see you next time on Choice.
Addiction has many faces and doesn't discriminate between the young, old, black, white, executive, homemaker, student, or plant worker. Don't suffer in silence. Find help, hope, and healing at Free Indeed Treatment Center. Free Indeed is a licensed, faith-based treatment facility that will help you get free and stay free. There are licensed professional counselors to help individuals and their families who struggle with addictions and destructive behaviors. Call 924-1910 or visit setfreeindeedministry.com.
Explore new worlds. Read. Visit literacy.gov and let the journey begin.